Okay, get this. What if I told you that centuries ago, a powerful African empire had its own embassies in Europe and sent ambassadors to negotiate directly with the Pope? Today, we are diving into the absolutely incredible and way too often overlooked story of the Kingdom of Kongo.
So, let's do a quick thought experiment. When I say the words 15th century, what's the first image that pops into your head? For a lot of us, I bet it's something straight out of Europe, right? Knights, big castles, maybe those famous ships heading out to explore the world.
And that image, it feeds right into this story we're all kind of taught. You know the one. A dynamic, go-getter Europe setting out to discover a world that was just sitting there. A world that was supposedly static, just waiting to be found.
But what if that story is just wrong? Or at least seriously incomplete? What if, while Europe was looking out at the world, other powerful civilizations were looking right back? To see what I mean, we've got to travel to West Central Africa, to the remarkable Kingdom of Kongo.
Now, I want you to erase any image of a small, isolated group of people. That is not what we're talking about here. The Kingdom of Kongo was a massive, highly developed, and totally sovereign state. And get this, it was founded way back in the 14th century, long before any European ships showed up on the coast. Let's just break down how organized this place was. You had a powerful king, called the Kongo, running a huge, centralized government. And we're not talking about some simple barter system either. They had a sophisticated economy with their own state-controlled currency, these special shells called nzimbu. They had master artisans and huge trade networks. By any standard, this was a complex and thriving civilization.
So, when European sailors finally did arrive, this wasn't a simple story of conquest. It was the beginning of a really complex international relationship. A relationship that would lead to something that sounds almost unbelievable today, a Congolese ambassador in Rome.
So, check out how this unfolded. First contact with the Portuguese is in 1483. By 1491, the Congolese royal family chooses to convert to Catholicism. And you have to understand, this was a totally strategic move. It was a way to modernize and to engage with Europe on their own terms, as equals. This relationship gets deeper, and by 1604, the King of Kongo sends his own official ambassador. And after an insane 4-year journey, this ambassador, Antonio Manuel de Vunda, arrives at the Vatican. Just let that sink in for a second. In the early 1600s, an African ambassador, sent by a sovereign African king, is conducting diplomacy in the very heart of European power. This completely shatters that old idea of a one-way street of discovery.
And this is exactly the point. As one historian puts it so well, these weren't encounters of discovery, they were exchanges between equals, two major world powers interacting and negotiating on the world stage. But that balance, it was resting on a very, very fragile foundation.
Because this relationship, built on this idea of mutual respect, well, it was not going to last. A new, unbelievably destructive economic force was about to enter the picture, and it would change absolutely everything.
I mean, look at the contrast here. It's night and day. What starts out as diplomacy and cultural exchange just devolves into exploitation and conflict. Everything gets turned on its head. So the question is, what on earth happened?
One thing, the transatlantic slave trade. The absolutely insatiable demand for enslaved people to work on plantations in the Americas completely destroyed the balance of power. The money involved was so immense that it warped the entire relationship, turning partners into predators and prey. So the story of Kongo's early diplomacy and its tragic fall isn't just some random historical footnote. Understanding it is absolutely essential if we want to correct the record and get a real grasp of how our world came to be.
This history doesn't just add a new chapter to the books, it basically forces us to rewrite the whole narrative. It completely demolishes the myth of a passive Africa just waiting around. Instead, you see a continent with real agency, real power, and its own sophisticated diplomacy. It gives us a much more complete and, frankly, more accurate picture of our shared past.
Because really, when you get down to it, the story of the Kingdom of Kongo, its triumphs, its ambassadors, its tragedies, it isn't separate from the story of Europe. It's not just African history, it is world history. Full stop.
And that's what I want to leave you with. If a story this massive, this significant, can be so widely overlooked, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other crucial histories, what other complex global stories are still out there, just hiding in plain sight?